Thank you so much for talking to us for the National Polish Radio Dwójka. My first question will be, of course, about keeping a fresh ear for all the participants. We are nearly in the second week of the Chopin competition. How do you focus? How do you keep fresh hearing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I have struggled with that, especially in the early rounds where we had so many ballades, for instance, and etudes and nocturnes. I always try to remind myself that I'm there to listen to someone's voice, something about this music that maybe I haven't discovered. So I tried to come to each performance with an open mind, no presuppositions, and just see what they have to say. It's like I try to spark my own curiosity about every performer, realizing that every performer has something unique. And it's my job to try to find that.
Without giving, of course, any names, did you have any illuminations, any interpretations that were magnificent or maybe shocking for you?
Yes, there have been many interesting interpretations, some that really have educated me. I love that when I feel that I've listened to something and I've discovered in their interpretation something that I overlooked or undervalued. And that is something, I have to say that when I hear that, I really wake up. And I've noticed something about the way one of the things I do a lot, I write a lot of notes. It's one way that keeps me on my toes, that I'm really analyzing what it is that I hear. I get an impression, I'm trying to understand it. And so I make notes to myself about why that might be that I feel the way I do. But sometimes when I hear a performance that is so mesmerizing, I stop writing. I'm completely absorbed in that interpretation. And then I know that was a good performance. So that's one that I want to reward. Yeah.
In a recent interview for our radio, Professor Krzysztof Jabłoński gave a little bit, I would say, bitter remark about the inability of hearing the natural Chopinic rhythms in dance pieces, so the ones that were inspired by folk dances, mazurkas, waltzes. He gave a remark that it's quite uncommon today to really get to know those dances and to know how to play them. Do you share this view?
Of course, that's one of the enigmatic aspects of Chopin's music. It's not something that can easily be learned. One of my teachers, I remember when I played mazurkas for him when I was preparing for the Warsaw competition myself, and he said, I can't really teach mazurkas. He thought that I did them pretty well, and he didn't want to touch them. It's something that's quite intuitive, and it does come, I think, from listening to some of the great historical recordings and absorbing that. And then, of course, you want to transcend that. You want it to be your own. But it is a very challenging aspect of Chopin. I think that's why we have a Polonaise prize, we have a Mazurka prize. We used to have a waltz prize as well. Not for some reason that disappeared. But that's also something that is, for Chopin, that is also quite special. And let's face it, this is why we have a Chopin competition, is because this music is quite specific and has specific challenges. It's not like any other competition in the world. So I don't have any secrets. I still am discovering how I can best shape a mazurka and find those natural rhythms that fit the music. So I don't have any sort of solution for that apart from just living with the music a lot, playing a lot of the genre, playing a lot of mazurkas, playing a lot of polonaises, and then over time, it starts to gel.
But would you say that younger generation has a problem with getting to know those pieces? Do you feel that they are interested in the Chopinic idiom?
Yeah, I think that in this generation, there is such an emphasis now on the individual approach, right? And so that they stand out from the thousands and thousands of other musicians. And so there is a tendency to focus on exaggerating, sort of doing a bit of Botox treatment to some of the works. And that's very unfortunate because I do think that one of the essential qualities of Chopin's music is that effortless, natural sort of expression that comes out that really directs us more to the music and less to the performer. So yeah, there is a problem, and it's pretty serious, I think, that we often can hear young performers either, some of them can be also, sort of trained to play things very traditionally, and that's also unfortunate because that's not really what we're here to listen to, is just a rerun. We want to always keep discovering what is unique and fresh, but without it somehow being destroyed by injecting sort of exaggerated views onto the music.
You had experience as a jury member also in the Katowice competition, the Szymanowski competition. Do you have any suggestions or maybe ideas that could be transported from the way the votes are counted there to the Chopin competition? Do you think that you have a clearer view of how young pianists who compete in an artistic competition should be scored?
Well, scoring is a really big topic and something that I have been obsessed with for many years. Particularly having been on the receiving end of scores at one point in my career. And I have worked extensively with a very fine Polish mathematician, Krzysztof Kontek, who I think got a bit of a name recently in the political elections. And we did use his system in Katowice. It's an evolving system, and it is actually, we've worked on things that we keep analyzing each competition that uses that system and improving it. The Chopin competition was unable to use this system at this edition. I do hope that in the future it will be implemented, because I think it could address some of the more difficult problems that exist with the current system of corrections and trying to understand what a score means, that we all could sort of understand that this number means this level. And that's just something that is very hard to do, and there are ways around it. Perhaps that's not important if you have a proper system that can make adjustments for that. So yeah, I'm very interested in that. I hope that improvements can be made, but I have every confidence that in the end we will be able to find some really fine, talented pianists to represent the competition this year.
Last question will be about the program, because this year we have some changes. We heard a lot of prelude cycles, a lot of ballads in the first rounds. Do you think that maybe the repertoire should be bigger, should be modified? What do you think about the repetition of some pieces? As a jury member, you have to hear them, but you have to be fresh, as we discussed before.
I think actually what I found very nice in more recent editions of the Chopin competition, unlike mine, where we had certain required pieces, even one piece that we all had to play, it was the second impromptu. There's a lot more liberty given to performers to choose their own repertoire, and I think that's important, because I think that a performer wants to highlight what they do best. And we've heard some really interesting performances of music that's rarely heard in this concert hall, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I hope that will continue. Of course, it's necessary, for instance, at one point in the competition, that all participants play a large-scale work like the sonata, just like it's important to play the concerto. And I'm very happy about the addition of the Polonaise Fantasy in the final round. I think that really shows artistry, and you can't fake it. It's one of those pieces that haunts us all. And so no, I think that the competition rules have pretty much nailed it. They've got it down. It allows for those performers who wish to emphasize playing more ballades or even a couple of scherzos, they can do that if that's what they're good at. If they want to play more of the colorful poetic works like the preludes, that's also fine, and no one should be sort of we need to allow that kind of liberty, I think, to explore.
And really last question will be about the portrait of Chopin that can be seen or implied in this year's competition. Do you think that there is some the portrait of Fryderyk Chopin, or the understanding of Chopinic idiom, year 2025? Do you think that there is a kind of universal theme that is connected with each performance? Do you think that we have a specific portrait of Chopin this year with this generation?
I don't know how to answer that question. I'm
saying a lot about individualities, you know, and giving the liberty to show the personal side in each piece with each participant. But do you think that the competition should be also about focusing on some imaginary portrait of Chopin, of Chopinic idiom, Chopinic music? Do you search for some universal aspect?
Well, both. I mean, look, first of all, Chopin was a romantic composer, so there is a subjective element there, and it's expected that the individual respond to that music in a subjective way. But there are some universal things as well about Chopin, that you know, his underlying classicism and things that are very important. I just think that you know, when we're talking about allowing competitors to explore their individual approach, the goal is not, again, to somehow direct us to the performer's individuality. The goal is to direct us to some aspect of Chopin's face, of his world, of his genius, and to help us to really recognize how beautiful that is in all its many possible reconstructions. So that's what I think is so important, and I do think that there are some wonderful performers here that have managed to touch on that essential element. So yeah, I'm so happy to be part of this jury and witness what I'm seeing.
Thank you very much for talking to us, and I wish you all the best for the next rounds, for your focus.
Okay, pleasure.
Konkurs Chopinowski w Polskim Radiu.